Hi, this is Parveen Dabas, and I'm sitting in a hotel room in Bhubaneswar. But I've got to get this message across to you. Unfortunately, there were some technical issues with the interviews of BJ PENN and YAIR Rodriguez, so we will not be able to bring them out to you. Sorry for that. Shit happens. Hello, and welcome back to the MMA India Show with me, your host Parveen Dabas, and Akhilesh Ganavarapu. Hi, Akhilesh. How's it going?
All good.
So before we start, I have a choice to make. I have 3 protein bars. I've got a Right Bite Max Protein Choco Slim, and I've got a Max Protein Choco Fudge, and I've got, oh, this is the same one, Choco Slim again. So I have to choose between Choco Fudge and Choco Slim to give me a little energy boost before the show, and I think I'm going to go with Choco Fudge. A lot of you keep asking us about nutrition advice. A protein bar always makes a great snack to have before working out. And plus, the best thing about Right Bite Max Protein is it's made in India. Since all of us are going gaga over the, rightly so, we've gone going over the made in India. What should we call it? The Made in India endeavor, by Modi. So I'm gonna stick to that with my Made in India Right Bright Max Protein Bar. Shall we get to the fights? That tastes good.
Yep.
So the 2 top fights, of course, you've spoken to BJ PENN and YAIR both for the show.
Yeah.
You've just seen those interviews. Let's first talk about Joe LAUZON and MARCIN HELD.
Yep.
MARCIN HELD was coming, with a lot of hope, but he lost to Diego Sanchez in his last fight.
Yeah.
Amazing fight. Diego Sanchez came back like a man possessed.
Yes.
And MARCIN HELD just didn't finally have an answer for him.
Yep.
And it's funny that Joe LAUZON had just beaten Diego Sanchez, though.
Yes. So Diego Sanchez, one of those perennial gatekeepers, that whenever someone, and the defining characteristic of Diego Sanchez is his aggression, and that is very similar to what Held will face against Joe LAUZON as well.
Yeah.
So we have seen Joe LAUZON fight with Miller, that one.
That was his last fight, which he lost. And before that, he won against Diego Sanchez. Before that, he lost against Evan Dunham, and before that, he won against Takanori Gordon. So he's had a little up and down. That's I think that makes it 2 wins and 2 losses in the last 4 fights.
Yes, and this is a very interesting matchup because Joe LAUZON is some guy who's very aggressive. As we have seen with his fight with Sanchez and Miller, even previously, he's always looking to go on the front foot, always trying to be the aggressor, always trying to push the pace. He has very good combinations, that he peppers his opponents with, that one lengthy jab that he follows up with some good combinations, pushes the pace and goes for a takedown. We have seen his fight with Miller where he was the aggressor. He was more active on the ground as well. And many thought he even won the fight against Miller, but the judges saw it otherwise. But he faces a very interesting opponent, mainly because Held is an excellent grappler. He has won his fights. He fought in ADCC back in 2010, if I remember. Then he had enrolled in those BJJ competitions as well, where he did phenomenally well. So he has very good submission grappling.
But it's amazing how Sanchez neutralized his grappling.
Yes. So the thing that I see a little different with Joe LAUZON here is LAUZON has very good wrestling, very effective wrestling, but the manner in which he may get into those predicaments where he goes to get those submissions, but opens up himself to get countered, and that is where someone like Held who is very good in his defensive guard, in throwing his submissions when he's on his back, can find those openings. That is the only problem where, or only the factor where I see Lauzon's aggression going against him. Yes, on the feet, it is, Joe Lauzon who has the distinct advantage because of his, as I said, aggression, the way in which he peppers his opponents, hides his combinations behind his lengthy jabs. And then, you have Held, who is kind of similar, is very active on the feet, uh, sets up his takedowns by using his combinations, has that perfect level change where he goes for those, single legs or double legs, and then works either, is very good from the top, working on his opponent from the top, or from the bottom, as I said, using his guard. But, the only factor where I see Held probably, giving Lauzon a fight for his money is when Lauzon overcommits in those submission attempts, but Held manages to, counter and get some submissions of his own.
Because Lauzon is great on his feet. I mean, he's got great boxing skills.
Yep. So he's aggressive, as I said, very aggressive, even on the feet, even while trying to go for those submissions.
Yeah.
The only factor that he needs to consider is, as I said, the grappling of Held.
Yeah.
That is where I see it being a distinct advantage
And
for
overcommitting on his own his own part.
Yes, so if he overcommits, that's when Held can throw in his submissions and trap Lauzon in his submissions.
Yeah.
So, I think Held is also coming with a chip on his shoulder. As you said, he lost to Sanchez previously. He was coming from Bellator where he fought Will Brooks. He lost that fight as well, but he was on a winning streak before that. So he came to UFC with some hype, but that got derailed during his Sanchez fight. So even Held will be looking to secure a victory and get his UFC career running.
Yeah. So, like I said, what's interesting is one has beaten Diego Sanchez and one lost to Diego Sanchez just recently. But they both need the win desperately, like really desperately.
I would say Held needs it even more because his first fight he lost in the UFC. Another loss will put him in 0-2. When he was in Bellator, he was fighting for the title, but now coming to the UFC, if he loses this fight, he goes on a 2-fight losing streak.
So that means one of his feet will be out of the UFC already, I think, possibly.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah.
You can say that because if people have lost to consecutive fights, the first two fights in the UFC have never gone on to achieve greater things.
Yeah.
So this is a very testing fight for Held. But as I said, if Lauzon, being Lauzon, overcommits himself, that's when I see the fight taking a turning point.
Yeah. So now coming to the main fight, this is something I've been dying to talk about. BJ PENN versus YAIR Rodriguez. Of course, you spoke to both of them. We got their interviews out. Now, I was really disappointed in BJ PENN's last fight against Frankie Edgar. Because who was his coach or his gym which told him to change his fighting stance and style?
I think that's something that BJ PENN himself had thought about, because the thing with the tiptoe stance is he used it to avoid Frankie's takedowns, because Frankie is really phenomenal when he goes for his takedowns and manages to work.
It wasn't working.
It wasn't working.
So then why go along with a strategy कि जी ये मैंने बनाया है कि फ्रैंकी एडगर मुझे लेकर नीचे नहीं पटक पाएगा, और ये वो 10 बार पटकने के बाद he's still getting up and trying the same thing.
And see, the weird part was BJ PENN has some of the best submission grappling in the UFC.
He does, but in that fight, as far as I remember, he didn't have a plan B. It's not like he was like, this is not working, let's move to plan B. He just kept going, and it's unfortunate because he had quite a few losses before that as well. His last win before that had been with Matt Hughes.
That was in 2010, yes. So he fought some big guys after that. 2010, Matt Hughes.
Okay. Yeah, 2010. So before that, he had a draw against John Fitch.
Fitch, right.
And then, of course, he lost to Nick Diaz, Rory McDonald, and Frankie Edgar. 3 in a row. So it makes you wonder why he wants to come back. You're a legend, Hall of Famer. You've done your bit. You had a little bit of a bad run in the end. Why come back, and risk? Of course, if he wins, then it's all like, oh, but he came back and he's back in the running, blah, blah, blah. Like, especially against a guy like YAIR Rodrigues. But YAIR Rodrigues has won 5 in a row since coming into the UFC. He's not a pushover. In fact, some might say, I don't know what the odds are saying, the betting odds, because I don't bet ever, that YAIR will probably be the favorite here.
Let me just pull out the betting odds if I can.
Okay, sure. I guess you're a betting man. I should. So next time I want to bet some money, I know who to come to.
So YAIR Rodrigues has a phenomenal lead. He's the odds-on favorite. He's at minus 485 to Penn's plus 385. Those are big betting odds. Those are big odds in favor of YAIR Rodrigues. But yeah, I mean, what could be one of the factors?
I think this is a news section we should start. कि जी सट्टेबाजी करनी हो तो उसके odds भी बता देंगे. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Before the cops come after us.
So I think Penn is. You have seen a lot of fighters that say I might have still one more run with the championship, one last run, something like that. You had Uriah Faber, who was pushing those mid to late 30s just because he wanted that UFC title that he never had. He was a WEC title holder, so he wanted to win a title in the UFC. So something similar with BJ Penn. The thing that I did not understand at that point and still cannot understand is BJ Penn fighting at 145. He won titles at 155, won title at 170. He was always a great lightweight or welterweight fighter. He moved, obviously, he fought in open weight tournaments. He fought heavyweights. He fought light heavyweights. He fought middleweights. So he fought virtually in every division, and then he came down to 145 at a time when Frankie Edgar was a beast.
Yeah.
So 2014, that's when Frankie Edgar was at the top. He was just one fight away from fighting Jose Aldo again, and he was on a tear at that point, one of the best featherweight fighters on the planet.
And BJ by the way, Penn, have you seen Frankie Edgar's video?
A video of?
He got groin surgery recently, so he put a video out on Instagram. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But anyway, so you guys should check it out. So yeah, he was a beast, and he lost all 3 to Frankie, didn't he?
Yes, he did. So I think that fight that he had with Frankie was at a time when Frankie was at the top of his he was at the peak of his career, and BJ Penn, as we know, was kind of winding down. But just the fact that BJ after the fight said, what, I'm retiring, I don't have what it takes anymore. See, his fight was similar to what Miesha Tate did. So if you've read what Brian Caraway, Miesha Tate's boyfriend, said, he said, Miesha, I've seen during a fight that she did not have.
Don't say that about Brian. Because Brian is a fighter in his own right, and we're trying to get him on the show. So don't call him Miesha Tate's boyfriend. He's a fighter and he has his own identity, please. Okay?
No, I mean, he was in a corner, that's why I said, but, corner, let's put it that way. Yeah. So he said, Miesha, did not do anything that would show me that she still has the hunger to fight or has the hunger to go for the title, because up until her fight with Holly Holm, Miesha was, she was there, she was hungry, she was, she wanted to get the title that she never had, she never possessed. So, something similar with BJ Penn. After his fight, he just looked beaten. He just said, what, I'm done fighting, I need to go. But, now he has switched camps. He has been working with Jackson Wink, Greg Jackson, who I think and many feel that, is one of the best coaches in the world.
Yes.
And the best thing about Greg Jackson and Jackson Wink camp is they devise excellent game plans. We have seen what happened to the likes of Carlos Condit, with John Jones, with Holly Holm, who have trained with Greg Jackson before the big fights. So Greg Jackson automatically changes your game plan, changes who you are as a fighter, and then incorporates those defensive techniques that you never had going into a major fight, and ensures that you have the ideal moveset to ensure a victory against your opponent. Now, the other interesting thing, that might play a major factor in this fight is YAIR Rodrigues used to train with Jackson Wink. Now he has moved to.
But YAIR did. I think it was a tweet or a Facebook, whatever it was. He gave out a message to Jackson Wink. Go ahead, give my details and all my secrets to BJ Penn. I don't care.
Yeah, so we even asked Yair what he thought about BJ training at Jackson Wink. What he thought about that was, but at the end of the day, when you have trained with a certain gym for an extensive period, obviously they would know your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And Yair was always one of those flashy strikers. He never truly showcased his submission wrestling game, but he has very underrated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That many fighters do not know. You take his fight against Caceres, for example.
Which was the
Yair
last
and
fight.
Caceres just threw down.
Yeah.
Excellent fight with
This is a great
some
fight.
unorthodox.
It was a great fight.
Yeah, with some unorthodox styles
Yeah.
of both fighters. So not many people know about Yair Rodriguez, BJJ, or his submission wrestling, which is very underrated, and that is because not many times we have seen Yair Rodriguez actually going for those slick submissions and transitions that he can. But obviously, his ex-teammates in Jackson Wink know about all of that, and he is going up against someone who is considered to be one of the elite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the fight game. If I remember correctly, BJJ started training in BJJ back in 1998, and by 2000 he was competing for world championships. So world championships and brown belt, which he had at that time. Then he was the first fighter, if I remember correctly, with that quickest transition from being a novice to getting the black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that. So you have Jackson Wing camp that might tell BJ Penn about Yair Rodriguez, his strengths, his weaknesses, what his submission game is like, how he can negate those flashy, unorthodox kicks that Yair Rodriguez throws. So, it can make a lot of difference. Yes, Yair would obviously come out and say that won't make any difference. You can give, whatever tips you have or whatever tactics that you thought I had at that point. It will obviously make a difference. I think.
It will, but Yair knows he knows. So he's going to be looking to change his game plan a little also.
Yeah, and the other thing is, no one has seen how BJ Penn is now, 2 years since his last fight. So last year, Greg Jackson came out and said, look out for BJ Penn. He's going to make a run for the title once again at 145. But no one knows. It's been 2 years. And if the last fight was any indication of BJ Penn's conditioning or how he is as an elite fighter, it's not looking that good. But again, he has had 2 years time off. Now he looks in phenomenal shape. He recently put out a photo showing where he is right now before the weigh-ins, and he looks phenomenal. So it's going to be a very interesting situation where we actually see what BJ Penn is like at the moment. We do not know accurately if he's the old BJ Penn that had those excellent boxing skills. Probably, even someone like Freddie Roach came out and said BJJ has the best boxing and mixed martial arts. And even someone like Anderson Silva said, BJ Penn is probably the greatest mixed martial artist in the world in history. So we do not know if the same BJ Penn would be showing up. We'll find out this weekend. But if BJ Penn finds his old self even a little bit, I'd be interested to see how BJ Penn does in his current run.
Yeah, see, I'll be very frank with you. People will always tune in to see BJ Penn because it's always interesting to see a big fighter make a comeback, or then people have this I don't know what the right word is, but some people get a kick out of seeing legends being pulled down as well. Now we really hope that that's not the case, because we hope wish the best for BJ Penn. My only thing is, I'll be very frank with you, I just don't want that he comes in a strategy. If it's not working, he sticks around with it again like last time.
So this time it won't happen because, as I said, he's working with the best coach, one of the best coaches in the world, in Greg Jackson, and one of the best gyms in Jackson Wing. So
they will always have, I think, a plan B for him.
Yeah, they devise not just one game plan; they devise two alternative game plans that they can switch back to if one thing isn't working. And that is something that, and a lot of people actually have said throughout BJ Penn's career, similar to what people are saying now with Ronda Rousey. They said, what if BJ Penn had a different coach, had a different training camp?
So he has a different training camp
now. Now he does, similar to now what is being discussed with Ronda Rousey. You never know how things might change if they go to a different camp where obviously, the fundamentals are once again built by those coaches, how they execute a game plan, how they devise a game plan in the first place. And, Greg Jackson and Jackson Wink have have always been known for their game plans. We have seen what happened with Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey, for example, or with Carlos Condit, his resurgence and fighting for the title earlier last year with Robbie Lawler. So, Jackson Wink has always been one of those camps that the fighters who kind of came down from where they were always turned to because of Greg Jackson. So if something like that happens,
so now
it's going to
moving
be
on from BJ PENN versus YAIR, moving on to get a little more into this discussion of coaches, because that was the big discussion last week after Ronda lost, and that video was on air also of Edmund, in his corner going, well, I forgot what he was saying.
head,
Sorry?
head movement.
Yeah, head movement. No. It didn't seem becoming of a coach who knew what he was doing. I don't want to put anybody down, but the view of a lot of people is she's got to move out because he doesn't have the skill for a top MMA coach, and a lot of people's careers have gone down. Ronda won for such a long time because she was Ronda, beating Beth Correa, and I think we've spoken about this before. We did speak about it before. He put it in her mind that she's a boxer also because she beat Beth Correa, but that wasn't a good judgment. You can't, So anyway, so he took her away from her strong points, which is not necessary. Yeah. You need to make sure a fighter is always fighting according to their strong points. He took her away from that. Now coming to Robbie Lawler also, I personally don't think it's such a good move for him to move from American top team. The reason being, he's just had one loss with them so far. He's had a terrific run with them. So obviously it was working. It was a good place. Of course, we don't know the real reasons why he left. If it was only because of this one loss, then maybe he shouldn't have, because it's not that easy adjusting to another gym sometimes.
Yeah, just talking about Ronda and Edmund, Eddie Bravo recently made a very good statement where he said, look, if I was a coach and if I had a fighter, an elite fighter, or even a newbie that was transitioning, say, from Muay Thai to MMA, I would not tell him to concentrate on wrestling. I would tell him to base his foundation on Muay Thai, what his solid background is. And, Ronda passed on and cruised against such a position because she, heavily relied on her judo, more than anything else. A lot of people called a one-trick pony just because she took her opponents down with, a judo throw and then locked them in the armbar. But it was working for her. Yeah. So, there was no need to kind of shift away from her game plan at that point. But, this is where coaches are important. This is where training camp is important. Having a really, really good coach who knows what he's doing really raises the level of the fighters. We have seen, as I've just pointed out, the cases of people like Holly Holm or Carlos Condit. You have various other, names that were, even Rafael Dos Anjos. If you talk about where he was during his time with Evolve MMA and how he has, went to King's MMA and has become the phenomenon he is at this point. So, a lot depends upon your coaches. A lot depends upon your training camp, how you devise a game plan, and this is where some of the best coaches come in and they change the level of a fighter completely. So, even talking about Robbie Lawler, I don't know if it was only because of his fight with Tyron Woodley. I think there were other.
That's what I'm saying. One can't really say if that was the only thing.
Right, and we would probably never know because Robbie Lawler is not the kind of person who would come out and trash his ex gym or his ex coaches. So there might be something that happened in the background. And Robbie Lawler, there is this other consideration where someone who was like Robbie, who was a former champion, is still at the peak of his career, would think, look, and no offense to Robbie Lawler, but right now many people see him as a one-dimensional fighter. He's just elite striking. Has a very good chin, had a very good chin at least till his fight with Tyron Woodley. Went to wars with other fighters and just stood up and traded. You have fights with the likes of Rory McDonald and Carlos Condit, and those were heavily on the feet. Yeah. So I think at this point, even Robbie Lawler might think about going to a different camp just to improve his all-round game. That is a major possibility. a fighter of Robbie's stature, the way he lost to Tyron Woodley, immediately he would have looked at his game and thought, I need to evolve as a fighter. I'm still at the top, at the peak of my career. I need to evolve in the all-round aspect. So that might be a consideration. That might be a factor
I
as to
think
why.
you always learn new tricks also when you move to a new but high level gym. I think the main thing here, of course, is the level of the gym, because you can't just go, because there was talk of him going, if it must have been a rumor, of going to Glendale. you know, so not that I'm trying to trash Glendale. I'm not saying it's not a good gym, but apart from Ronda, even Travis hasn't really been fighting that well. Anyway, enough of that. So it's very important that he go, to a gym where he still gets, of course, that team feeling, because American Top Team was, there's a whole different thing of being with a team where there are a lot of winners. Of course, he was the first champ for American Top Team, and he was the top dog there. Hello? We will be right back. I think we're experiencing some Skype difficulties connecting with Akhilesh. We'll reconnect and come right back.
पेट भर गया मेरा तो डन क्या आपने किया प्रोटीन ब्रेकफास्ट
Hello, and we're back with Akhilesh after Akhilesh has had a power cut in Hyderabad. क्या क्या करते हैं हैदराबाद में? हाँ, हैदराबाद वाले बिजली नहीं देते लगता है. क्या है? या बिजली का बिल नहीं बना. हाँ.
वो सब हो गया. I mean, this is something that's been happening in Hyderabad for the past couple of days for some reason. What I don't know.
Achha. So, but that's Hyderabad is Telangana now, right?
Yeah, it's in Telangana. It's in Telangana.
Or it's both. It's half.
It's in Telangana as a state. But yeah, you have people from all over living in Hyderabad, so we don't really look into that so much.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious. So where were we?
We were talking about Robbie Lawler leaving ATT.
Yeah. So I think we reached the end of that discussion more or less. That hopefully, you will go to a great gym where he'll learn and progress his career rather than somebody who would take him back.
Yeah, I think looking at TriStar, I probably feel TriStar would be the best gym for someone like Robbie Lawler at this point.
Yeah.
Firaz Zahabi would work wonders with someone like Robbie Lawler. He had people like GSP, the greatest example that we can see. So,
or even I think they've done a fantastic job with Mickey Gall as well. I mean, he hasn't, of course, faced top level, but listen, Northcutt was an upcoming boy, and he finished him pretty quickly.
Yeah. So Gall used to train out of 3 gyms. He used to also go to Miller's gym. But yeah, Firaz Zahabi,
you know what I mean. He gave him a really good all-rounding finishing. He did go stay there. But coming now to Mark Hunt's case against the UFC, which is really interesting, because I personally feel he waited to get the fight. कि ठीक है ये पैसा आगे अभी इसी पैसे के साथ मैं केस लड़ूंगा. Which is, I don't know if it's ever happened before in where a fighter, while in contract and about to fight, he's got a fight coming up and files a case against the same promotion. So he's fighting for them now, and that is a great matchup which is going to happen, him against Overeem. But I think he has a point, where he says, listen, if the other guy gets caught doing PEDs, steroids, whatever, which is illegal, which USADA says is illegal, gives them suspension or whatever. If it's something you're not supposed to do, then why should he profit from that? Why should he make money? Why should he go home with millions? I mean, who cares if you're suspended for a year? I'll sit at home, give me 3 million. I'll fucking take all the country, give me 3 million, I'll sit at home all year long. So that is a wrong, I think, thought, that you slap him on the hand a little, put him, and he doesn't care anyway. He's fighting in wherever, WWE or wherever he fights. He doesn't care, Brock Lesnar. He doesn't care.
So this is a gray area. I think something like this would set precedence. You have, see, now the biggest, talking point in MMA is someone like Shad Mendez, for example, used cream, some balm or whatever, which had, human growth hormones, a little traces of it at least, and he was, given a 2-year sentence by USADA, and just because it's under NSAC as well. So now someone like Brock Lesnar, who was fast tracked. So what usually happens is when a fighter retires, he has a 4-month window where he's, once again put through USADA's testing process. He is given a 4-month period where he gets extensively tested, but that did not happen with Brock Lesnar. So something like this would set precedence, A, for the good as well as B, for the bad. For the good is because people like, as you said, as even Hunt said, Brock Lesnar it was just fined what 200,000 or something like that, 10% of his purse. He got 3 million or 2.5 million, and it was slapped
so less than 10%, yeah.
Just 10%. So it would set good precedence, because if a fighter is popped by USADA for using illegal banned substances, then the entire fight purse goes to his opponent, which is very good. And similar thing can be even looked at, the fighters missing weight. If they miss weight for about, say, 2.5 or 3 pounds or of what the fight weight is, then more than just 20 or 30% of the fight fee, you forfeit about 50% of it, so that the fighters do not miss weight again. So it sets good precedence, something like this, but it also sets bad precedence. My once again go-to example is Shad Mendez. 2 years for someone like Shad Mendez, but 1 year for Brock Lesnar. And even John Jones, for example.
That's not setting a bad precedent. That's being unequal in your punishment. There's a difference.
Yeah, so unequal, again, bad precedence, because if a fighter gets popped for human growth hormone, say it's for using, banned substances, or because of traces of using balms that he was not supposed to use. So those are two different cases, completely different cases, but with the same punishment, which, again, might not be a good thing. That's what I mean by bad precedence. Yes, it sets good precedence overall, but, it's unequal. It's not the same for all the fighters.
That's what I'm saying. So that is a bad precedent in terms of that it's unequal, which it shouldn't be. So we should look at it in terms of improving that. They need to take these kind of things into consideration.
But normally these guys don't. That is because it's, where do you draw the line? That is what state athletic commissions would even say, or even USADA, for example, says. When you talk about USADA or WADA, they do not consider, say, for example, you have Olympics, where you have one athlete who has taken banned substances, another athlete who was, say, injected with it without his knowing, or, just use traces of it through balms or through ointments or whatever it is. WADA or USADA cannot come, WADA cannot go there and say, just because you did not know what he was putting in his system, we'll give him lesser punishment. That doesn't happen with, those athletes. And the same is transition when it comes down to MMA as well. So, it's an interesting scenario. What Hunt is doing would, generally create more awareness, would be for the betterment of the sport. But at the same time, we need to make sure that all the fighters are treated equally, which obviously it cannot happen. It does not happen. Yeah. Someone like Conor McGregor would obviously be treated different. To just say, when it comes to your lower end.
That is fine, because that is also about supply and demand. It's just like in the film world, depending on what you can command, and everybody's price is different. Everybody, what they can get away with is different. So that's understandable.
Right. So that's my only concern. Where would you draw the line in the sand? Would that even be possible? If Hunt should win his case, just because Dana White probably knew what Brock Lesnar was on. He failed his test even 10 days before the fight. They conducted one test on June 28th, about 12 days before the fight. But just because UFC did not expedite the process, Brock Lesnar was still allowed to fight. He was paid $2.5 million for it. Yeah. And Hunt was given 700. So obviously star power is different, draw is different. But at the same time, when someone...
Fine. That's a whole totally different matter about who's paid what.
Right, but the point that I'm trying to make is, as a fighter, if you're a bigger draw, you get off easily, and that should not happen. That is what Hunt is fighting against.
Yeah, but the whole point I want to make also is, that shouldn't matter to USADA. A bigger fighter, okay, that matters to UFC, which is fair enough. But UFC is not the one giving out the punishment. USADA is. The fine and the punishment. So
See, now
USADA is the one that's got to get their act together.
Now I'll give you another example. Let's talk about state athletic commissions. You have a lot of UFC pay-per-views going on in Nevada, in Las Vegas. Now, for example, if someone like Conor McGregor gets busted, and if NSAC hands him 1 year or 2 year, ban, how would that work for NSAC? It would be a loss for them.
Yeah.
The lesser revenue would essentially mean lesser pay for the state athletic commission, which is bad for them. So it does affect how you're thinking. It does affect how NSAC gives out its bans as well. So it's not just how UFC or USADA operates, it's mainly about how the state athletic commission operates. Now you see some state athletic commission, like for example in Texas, they have a big leeway. Why they want more events to happen in Texas? Just because it makes more money for the state athletic commissions. So it's a bigger deal than just what confines to UFC or USADA.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what else? Yeah, well, you know what? Another thing I'm really excited about is UFC 209.
Yeah.
Two top fights. They've just suddenly come together. Of course, we have spoken about it on our Facebook page that in the last couple of days that they're going to happen. And of course, now we announced that as well. Khabib versus Tony Ferguson and Woodley versus Stephen Thompson Part 2. Amazing fights. Yes. I don't think we need to go into detail right now because we're going to do a preview show. We can just say we're excited and move on. But a great fight card, some great fights. Another fight I'm really looking forward to is Valentina Shevchenko versus Penna.
Yeah,
because I have been following Penna ever since her Ultimate Fighter and her first fight against Baszler. Where Baszler was really sure that she's going to win, but she didn't. Anyway, we'll talk about that more when we do the preview. So, anything else?
Oh, yeah, this weekend you also have the featherweight title of Invictus, the interim featherweight title.
Yes,
Megan
the
Anderson.
interim featherweight title. We tried to talk to Megan Anderson. It didn't work out. Shannon Knapp. So, but yeah, it's despite that, we have no ill will. It's fine. We'll talk to them once they win.
And you also have Chael Sonnen and Tito Ortiz next week.
That's next week. So that is something that we're going to, preview and speak about.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a pretty exciting fight, Megan Anderson, versus Tweet, especially because Anderson's been on a roll. I think a 3 fight winning streak or 4.
Yes.
Guess what? 3
she
or 4?
Completely dominated.
Has she won 3 in a row so far or 4?
I think 3.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
So, and she's won
last
pretty
week
dominantly. I mean, she's got a very good. She's a big girl. She's 6 feet tall. Huge girl, very dominating. Got good skills. So I think it's going to be an exciting fight. And I think, as far as I know, they are free right now on UFC Fight Pass this weekend. The fights, because it's Invicta's 21st fight card, so they are showing these fights for free over the weekend.
I do not think so. They just gave 21 fights for free. It's not the event that is for free.
Oh, it's not the event which is free? Oh, they're showing 21 fights? Okay, so if nothing else, log on to UFC Fight Pass and see the 21 fights for free.
Okay. Because it's on UFC Fight Pass anyways. If you have UFC Fight Pass, you can watch the event for free anyways.
Yeah, but those, you have to have the subscription to UFC Fight Pass. But I don't think you have to have the subscription to watch those fights.
You should. Yeah, you have to have subscription.
Anyway, so you got to still pay that money to UFC Fight Pass if you want to see it's not free. It's not so free then, is it? Huh? It's not really free then, is it? So...
Well, still you have a lot of promotions having events this weekend that will be on UFC Fight Pass. The other one I know for sure is TKO. They have a very good card coming up this weekend. Legacy, there are multiple promotions. So I think it's a bargain if you have a subscription for UFC Fight Pass.
I do as well. I have a subscription, of course, because we got to watch the fights and then do the reviews. And anyway, it's always great to see the other fights as well. So I think that's it for the show today. before we leave, I have another choice to make. Do I have the Max Protein Spanish tomato or the cheese and jalapeno? So while I make that choice to have my Max Protein chips, I say goodbye to everybody and goodbye Akhilesh. We look forward to the fight and talking to all of you right after the fight in our post-match review. See you.
पेट भर गया मेरा तो डन क्या आपने किया प्रोटीन ब्रेकफास्ट